3 a.m. The rhapsody of the seas cuts through the Caribbean, a floating palace of laughter, champagne, and twinkling lights. In cabin 7025, Ron Bradley stirs awake. The balcony door creaks open. A salt-tinged breeze sweeps into the room. He glances at the couch where his 23-year-old daughter, Amy, had been sleeping just hours earlier. But now the cushions are dented. Her sandals sit neatly by the door. Her paperback splayed open, spine up. And Amy? Gone. Vanished. No scream. No struggle. Just the hum of the ship's engine and a father's mounting dread. By dawn, every corner of the 915-foot vessel is scoured. Crew members whisper. Passengers panic. How does someone disappear on a ship packed with 2,500 people? No one knows. But what follows is a nightmare that defies logic. A case soaked in cryptic sightings, shadowy figures, and a family's 26-year ache for answers. This is the story of Amy Lynn Bradley, and it's far darker than you think. To understand the weight of this mystery, you need to know the girl behind the headlines. Amy Lynn Bradley wasn't just a name on a missing persons poster. She was a fiery, quick-witted 23-year-old from Chesterfield, Virginia, a star athlete who'd traded her high school basketball jersey for a career as a radiologic technician. She had a sailor's tattoo of a gecko on her shoulder, a soft spot for R&B music, and a habit of scribbling inside book covers with her favorite purple pen. To her younger brother, Brad, she was a hero, the kind of sister who'd sneak him candy after their parents said no. In March 1998, life was unfolding exactly as she'd planned. A new job lined up, a fiancé back home, and a 7-day Caribbean cruise with her family to celebrate her father's retirement. But Amy's story wasn't about the future anymore. It was about to become a relic of the past, a before and after etched into her family's history. The rhapsody of the seas wasn't just a vacation. It was the last place Amy Lynn Bradley would ever be seen alive. The night Amy Lynn Bradley vanished began like any other aboard the Rhapsody of the Seas. The ship hummed with laughter, clinking glasses, and the distant thump of music from the deck parties. But as the clock ticked toward midnight, the energy shifted. The crowds thinned. The corridors grew quiet. And somewhere in those dim, labyrinthine halls, a nightmare was unfolding, one that would leave investigators scrambling for answers for decades. Let's rewind. March 24th, 1998. The Bradley family, Ron, Iva, Brad, and Amy, had spent the day exploring the sun-soaked beaches of Curacao. They returned to the ship exhausted but content, ready to enjoy their final night at sea before docking in Aruba the next morning. Dinner was lively. Amy, wearing a white sundress and her signature hoop earrings, joked with her brother about the cheesy onboard magician. Later, she joined her parents for a drink at the Blue Moon Lounge, sipping a piña colada while a calypso band played in the background. By 11:30 p.m., the family retired to their cabin, cabin 7025, a modest room with twin beds and a small balcony overlooking the ocean. But Amy wasn't ready to sleep. At midnight, she slipped out of the cabin, telling her father she wanted to get some air. Ron, half asleep, mumbled a warning to be careful. Amy stepped onto the balcony, lit a cigarette, and stared at the black waves below. Her parents drifted off to the sound of the sliding door clicking shut. What happened next is a blur of contradictions. Around 1:30 a.m., a crew member swears he saw Amy pacing the deck near the pool, her arms crossed against the chill. She was alone, he said, no phone, no purse, just a distant look in her eyes. At 2 a.m., a bartender named Jerry spotted her at the schooner bar, swaying to the music with a man introduced only as Yellow, a guitarist from the ship's band. Jerry later told investigators Amy seemed relaxed, even laughing as Yellow twirled her under the disco lights. But by 3 a.m., the bar closed. Yellow vanished into the crew quarters. Amy, she lingered for a moment, ordered a glass of water, and left. Then silence. At 3:30 a.m., a security guard making his rounds noticed a woman matching Amy's description near the casino. She was barefoot, he claimed, leaning against a slot machine as if disoriented. When he asked if she needed help, she shook her head and hurried away. Was this Amy? Or a case of mistaken identity? No one knows. Back in cabin 7025, Ron Bradley stirred awake at 5:30 a.m. The balcony door was open, curtains fluttering in the breeze. Amy's sandals sat neatly by the couch. Her paperback copy of The Firm lay face down on the table, a purple pen tucked between the pages. But Amy wasn't on the balcony. She wasn't in the bathroom. She wasn't anywhere. Panic set in. Ron raced to the deck, shouting her name. Iva alerted security. Crew members combed the ship, The gym, the theaters, the staff-only corridors. Passengers were questioned. Cabins searched. But as the sun rose over Aruba, the truth became unavoidable. Amy was gone. The ship's security cameras? Useless. The Rhapsody of the Seas had no CCTV footage of the decks or hallways that night. The only evidence was a single blurry photo from the schooner bar, showing Amy dancing with Yellow. But Yellow himself disappeared after the cruise, his real name never confirmed. By 9 a.m., the ship docked in Aruba. Local authorities boarded, sniffer dogs in tow. They checked lifeboats, storage rooms, even the ship's garbage compactor. Nothing. The Bradleys begged to stay aboard, but the cruise line insisted they disembark. As the family stepped onto the pier, Ron turned to Iva, his voice breaking. "She's out there somewhere. I can feel it. But where?" The ocean gave no answers. No clothing floated to the surface. No body washed ashore. Even the FBI's dive teams, scanning the seabed months later, found nothing. It was as if the sea itself had swallowed Amy whole. Yet rumors persisted. A crew member came forward, claiming he'd seen Amy arguing with a suspicious man near the crew elevators around 4 a.m. Another passenger swore she'd heard a woman scream near Deck 5 around the same time. But these accounts were shaky, dismissed as hearsay. The only concrete detail? A steward's log noting a disturbed lifeboat cover on Deck 6, untied, as if someone had tampered with it. But by the time investigators checked, the ropes had been retied. The Bradleys clung to one thread of hope, Amy's tattoo. The gecko on her shoulder, they argued, would be recognizable. They plastered her photo across the Caribbean, offering a $25,000 reward. But every lead crumbled. A sex worker in Curacao with a similar tattoo? Not Amy. A homeless woman in Barbados muttering her name? A dead end. Years later, the case file remains open. Yellow's identity? Still unknown. The scream in the night? Never explained. The lifeboat cover? A red herring or a clue. But here's what chills me the most. On a ship packed with 2,500 people, in a cabin shared with her family, Amy Lynn Bradley didn't just vanish. She evaporated. No struggle. No goodbye. Just a cold, silent void where a vibrant young woman once stood. Was it an accident? A crime of opportunity? Or something far more sinister? The ocean isn't talking, and neither is the Rhapsody of the Seas. The moment the Rhapsody of the Seas docked in Curacao on March 25, 1998, the clock was ticking. Local authorities stormed the ship, armed with sniffer dogs and flashlights. They crawled through engine rooms, peeked into laundry chutes, even scanned the murky water beneath the hull with sonar. But the Caribbean sun burned hotter, and hope faded faster. No suitcase hidden in a storage closet. No strand of Amy's blonde hair caught on a railing. Nothing. The Bradleys refused to leave the island. For days, they plastered Amy's face on flyers, her gecko tattoo circled in red ink. They bribed taxi drivers to spread the word, haunted beach bars, and pleaded with shop owners. "She's out there," Ron kept saying. "I know she is." But Curaçao's streets offered only silence. Then a break, or so they thought. In 1999, a blurry Polaroid surfaced. A woman, gaunt and hollow-eyed, stared into the camera. She stood in a dim room, walls peeling, wearing a bikini that barely fit. But there it was, a gecko tattoo on her shoulder. The photo was allegedly taken at a brothel in Curaçao, just miles from where the ship had docked. The FBI analyzed it. The family held their breath. "That's her," Ivor insisted, pointing to the woman's faint scar above the eyebrow, a detail only a mother would know. But the lead went cold. The brothel had shut down. The men who'd taken the photo vanished. And the woman in the image? She became another ghost. The years rolled on, each one heavier than the last. In 2003, a Canadian tourist named Judy Maurer was vacationing in Barbados. She wandered into a public restroom near Bridgetown's harbor. There, she claims, a skinny blonde woman lunged at her, clawing at her arm. "My name is Amy Bradley," the woman whispered, tears streaming. "They won't let me go." Before Judy could react, a man burst into the bathroom, grabbed the woman by the hair, and dragged her out. Judy reported it to police, but by the time they arrived, the pair was gone. The Bradleys flew to Barbados, scoured every alley, every beach shack. Nothing. Then, in 2005, a U.S. Navy recruit named Chris Fenwick stepped forward. He'd been partying in Trinidad, he said, when a woman approached him outside a nightclub. Her hair was dyed black, her face bruised. "I'm Amy Bradley," she pleaded. "Please help me." Chris, skeptical, asked her to prove it. "I have a brother named Brad," she said. My dad retired from the FBI. Chills shot down Chris's spine. He tried to follow her, but she melted into the crowd. The FBI swarmed Trinidad, but again, no Amy. Each sighting dangled hope like a carrot. Each one snapped in half. The Bradleys hired private investigators, psychics, even a former CIA agent. They drained their savings, sold their cars, and begged for media attention. In 2000, the FBI finally classified Amy's case as a kidnapping. Agents chased leads across the globe, Venezuela, St. Martin, the Netherlands. They interviewed sailors, pimps, and human traffickers. One name kept popping up. Yellow, the band member Amy had danced with hours before vanishing. But Yellow was a ghost. Crew manifests listed no one by that nickname. The band itself dissolved months after the cruise. The most haunting clue? A handwritten letter. In 1998, a woman claiming to be Amy called the FBI tip line. She hung up before agents could trace the call. Months later, a scrawled note arrived at the Bradley home. No return address, postmarked from Puerto Rico. "I'm alive," it read, "but I can't come home. They're watching." The handwriting was shaky, rushed. Experts compared it to Amy's penmanship. Inconclusive. Was it a hoax? A cruel joke? Or a cry for help lost in the noise? Even the ocean seemed to mock them. In 2010, divers searching for a shipwreck near Aruba stumbled on a skeletal remains wedged in coral. The skull's jawline matched Amy's. The Bradleys braced for the worst. But DNA tests came back negative. Another dead end. Theories piled up like driftwood. Some said Amy fell overboard, a tragic accident, her body lost to the currents. Others swore she'd been trafficked, sold into the Caribbean's shadowy underworld. A crew member anonymously claimed the ship's staff had a secret elevator to smuggle people off undetected. But without proof, it was just another rumor. The hardest truth? The evidence died with time. Witnesses forgot details. Security logs were lost. The Rhapsody of the Seas was renovated, its 1998 layout erased. By 2020, the FBI had interviewed over 300 people and pursued 2,500 leads. All led to the same brick wall. Today, Amy's case remains open. Her family still waits. Her brother Brad tweets her photo every March 24th, begging for answers. The gecko tattoo poster still hangs in Curaçao's police stations, faded by sun and salt. But here's what keeps me up at night. In nearly every missing person's case, there's a body. A note, a confession, something. Amy's disappearance has none of that. Just whispers, shadows. A name screamed into the void. Was the woman in the brothel really her? Did she escape Barbados only to be caught again? Or is Amy still out there, somewhere, a prisoner of the sea's dark secrets? We may never know. And that's the cruelest dead end of all. Let's get one thing straight. People don't just vanish. Not really. Even in the vast, indifferent ocean, there's usually a ripple, a clue, a body, a reason. But Amy Lynn Bradley's case? It defies logic. It mocks the rules. And that's why, decades later, we're still clawing at theories, desperate to make sense of the senseless. Theory 1, the accident. It's the simplest explanation. Maybe Amy couldn't sleep. Maybe she wandered the deck alone, leaned too far over the railing, and slipped. Cruise ships average 2 overboard incidents a year. The sea is dark. The railings are low. Tragedy strikes fast. But here's the problem. No one heard a splash. No one saw her fall. The Rhapsody of the Seas had motion sensors on its railings. None triggered that night. And Amy's family swears she wasn't reckless. She'd just gotten engaged. She'd packed her suitcase for the next day's excursion. Would she really lean over a railing in the dead of night, alone, with no warning? Her brother Brad puts it bluntly. Amy didn't fall. She was taken. Theory 2, the cover-up. Whispers started the moment the ship docked. Crew members closed ranks. Passengers were hurried off. The security logs? Missing. The CCTV footage? Non-existent. Even the lifeboat tampering was dismissed as routine. But what if someone on that ship knew more? Take Yellow, the guitarist. He danced with Amy hours before she vanished. Crew claimed they didn't know his real name. The band disbanded after the cruise. Coincidence? Or a red flag? An anonymous crew member later alleged that some staff had ties to Caribbean crime rings, groups that trafficked women into brothels or offshore sex cruises. Was Amy targeted? Lured? Sold? The FBI thinks so. In 2000, they reclassified her case as a kidnapping. But without a body, without a crime scene, it's all circumstantial. A ghost story. Theory 3, the trafficking nightmare. This is the theory that chokes the Bradley family. The Polaroid from the Curacao brothel. The woman in Barbados screaming Amy's name. The Navy recruit in Trinidad. Each sighting paints the same horror. A woman trapped, desperate, begging for help. Human trafficking is a $150 billion industry. The Caribbean's ports are notorious hubs. Could Amy have been drugged, smuggled off the ship, and sold? It's possible. Crew members have master keys. Cargo exits. Blind spots. In 2019, a Carnival Cruise employee was arrested for smuggling drugs. Proof that forbidden things do slip on and off ships. But again, where's the proof? The brothel photo was never authenticated. The witnesses' stories shifted over time. And the FBI's 2005 raid on a suspected trafficking ring in St. Martin turned up nothing linked to Amy. Theory 4. The voluntary disappearance. Maybe Amy wanted to vanish. Maybe she staged it all, left her sandals, her book, her life, to start over. But her family laughs at this. She'd never do that, her mother Iva said. She left her insulin behind. She couldn't survive without it. Amy had no history of mental illness, no secret debts, no lover waiting in the shadows. Just a plane ticket home and a wedding dress hanging in her closet. Theory 5, the perfect crime. Here's the darkest possibility. What if someone on that ship, a passenger, a crew member, a stranger, saw an opportunity and took it? A young woman alone at night. A sleeping family. A ship with no cameras. In 2001, a serial killer named George Smith vanished from a cruise near Greece. His case, also unsolved. The truth is, ships are floating cities, and cities have predators. Maybe Amy fought back. Maybe she didn't. Either way, the killer had hours to hide the evidence before docking. Dump the body. Bleach the cabin. Blame the ocean. But why no screams? No blood? No witnesses? Even the sharpest criminals leave traces. The unanswered questions. Let's play devil's advocate. If Amy was trafficked, why taunt the family with sightings? Why let her beg for help in public? If she fell, why no body? If she was killed, why no motive? The Bradleys have their own theory. A mix of bad luck and evil. They believe Amy met someone that night, someone charming, someone trusted, who led her into a trap. Maybe yellow. Maybe a crewman offering a midnight tour. Maybe a passenger with a fake smile. Once she was isolated, the ship's maze of corridors became her prison. But without evidence, it's all just noise. The FBI's case file is thick with what-ifs and maybes. Even the gecko tattoo, once seen as a surefire identifier, became useless. Traffickers often alter tattoos, they say. The weight of maybe. What's left, then? A family's grief. A brother's guilt. A world that can't decide if Amy's story is a cautionary tale or a conspiracy. The ocean keeps its secrets. But so do people. Someone somewhere knows what happened that night. A crew member who heard a scream. A trafficker who remembers a blonde girl with a gecko tattoo. A passenger who saw something but stayed silent. Until that person speaks, Amy Lynn. Bradley remains a ghost, a reminder that even in paradise, darkness lurks. A reminder that sometimes the scariest answer is the one we'll never get. A gas station bathroom in Barbados. Flickering fluorescent lights. A tourist fixes her lipstick in the mirror when, suddenly, a skeletal hand grips her shoulder. A voice rasps, "Tell my family I'm alive." The tourist spins around, but the stall is empty. Just the drip of a faucet. The echo of a scream. This isn't a scene from a horror movie. This is the kind of story that's followed Amy Bradley's case for 26 years. Stories that blur the line between truth and trauma, between evidence and agony. Because when someone vanishes without a trace, hope doesn't fade, it twists. It becomes a monster. And that monster has a name. What if? Narration continues. The first sighting came just months after Amy disappeared. A cruise passenger swore she'd seen Amy, pale, thin, and flanked by two men, boarding a yacht in St. Martin. "She looked right at me," the woman told police, like she was begging me to say something. But when authorities tracked the yacht's owner, he laughed. "That girl? She's a dancer from Miami. Paid in cash. Gone by dawn. No name. No records. Just another dead end." Then, in 1999, the photo, a grainy Polaroid, slipped under the door of a Curacao police station. No note. No return address. Just a woman in a neon bikini, her back to the camera, the gecko tattoo on her shoulder screaming Amy's name. The Bradleys collapsed when they saw it. "That's her scar," Iva whispered, pointing to a faint line above the woman's eyebrow, a scar Amy got at 12, falling off her bike. The FBI analyzed the photo. Shadows didn't match. The tattoo's placement was slightly off. Or was it? Experts argued. The photo vanished from evidence files in 2002. Lost? Stolen? No one knows. But the sightings kept coming. In 2003, a Canadian teacher named Judy Maurer was vacationing in Barbados. She stopped at a beachside restroom, humming a Mariah Carey song, Amy's favorite. As she washed her hands, a gaunt woman in a tattered sundress lunged from a stall. "My name is Amy Bradley," the woman hissed, her breath sour, eyes wild. "Please help me. They're watching." Before Judy could react, a man in a security guard's uniform yanked the woman away by her hair. Judy reported it to police, but they shrugged. "Tourists see ghosts here all the time," an officer said. The Bradleys flew to Barbados, printed flyers, and bribed locals for tips. One cab driver claimed he'd driven a nervous American girl to a dockyard the week before. But when Ron Bradley arrived, the dockyard was just rotting wood and feral cats. Then, 2005, Trinidad, a U.S. Navy recruit named Chris Fenwick was partying in Port of Spain when a woman tugged his sleeve outside a nightclub. Her hair was dyed black, roots blonde. Bruises mottled her arms. "I'm Amy Bradley," she whispered. "My brother's name is Brad. My father worked for the FBI." Chris, stunned, asked her to prove it. "I have a gecko tattoo," she said, pulling down her collar to reveal nothing. Just unmarked skin. "They removed it," she pleaded, before a man in a leather jacket dragged her into a car. Chris reported it, but Trinidadian police found no trace. The Bradleys begged the FBI to test local brothels. Agents found 12 blonde women. None were Amy, but the most chilling tip came in 2010. An anonymous email arrived at the Bradley family's dwindling tip line. "I was held with her," it read. They called her the American. She kept saying her dad would find her. They moved her to Venezuela. She's dead now. The IP address traced to an internet cafe in Colombia, a hub for human traffickers. The FBI sent agents, but the cafe had burned down a week earlier. Coincidence? Or a warning? Here's the problem with phantom sightings. They feed on fear. On guilt. The Bradleys had to chase every lead, no matter how absurd. What if this was the one? What if they gave up too soon? In 2012, a psychic claimed Amy was buried under a concrete slab in Aruba. The family mortgaged their home to fund a dig. They found rusty nails, bottle caps. No slab. No Amy. Even the FBI grew cynical. Tips poured in. Amy spotted at a Paris cafe, a Bangkok market, a Walmart in Ohio. Agents wasted thousands of hours chasing doppelgangers. "It's like she's everywhere and nowhere," one investigator admitted. "People see what they want to see. But what about the things they don't want to see?" In 2017, a retired cruise ship bartender drunkenly told a true crime podcaster. Everyone knew Yellow. Dude had a side hustle. Girls would go missing on his ships. He'd brag about it. The podcaster tracked down Yellow's ex-girlfriend. "He's dead," she said. "Jumped off a ferry in Greece. Good riddance. No police report. No body. Just another ghost." The Bradleys don't care about ghosts. They care about facts. And the facts are this: over 300 sightings. Zero proof. A family's life savings drained. A brother who still sleeps with his phone on his chest, just in case she calls. So are the sightings real? Or just the desperate gasps of a tragedy with no ending? Maybe. Both. Because when the truth drowns, all that's left is the thrashing. The blur between what's possible and what's unbearable. Amy's face is a Rorschach test now. A blank space for our worst fears. But for the Bradleys, it's simpler. As Ron once said, "Either my daughter is out there, suffering, or she's gone. Both answers are hell. But I need to know which hell I'm living in. Until then, the sightings will keep coming. And the monster named What If will keep growing." Close your eyes. Picture a cruise ship. Champagne toasts. Midnight buffets. The thrill of waking up in a new paradise every morning. Now imagine that same ship. Its glittering pools, its karaoke bars, its endless corridors, as a crime scene. A maze with no exit. A stage for a horror story where the lights never come up. That's the chilling truth of Amy Bradley's disappearance. It's not just a mystery. It's a violation. A reminder that even in places designed for joy, darkness can swallow you whole. And 26 years later, we're still screaming into the void for answers. Narration continues. Most missing persons cases follow a script. A body found. A confession. A trail of breadcrumbs leading to closure. But Amy's? It's a ghost story without an ending. A nightmare that won't let us wake up. And there are reasons it clings to us like a shadow. First, the setting. A cruise ship isn't just a vacation. It's a floating microcosm of trust, You sleep feet away from strangers. You let crew members into your room. You assume the cameras are watching. But in 1998, the Rhapsody of the Seas had no CCTV on deck. No sensors beyond the railings. Just 2,500 people packed into a steel labyrinth where anyone could be a savior or a predator. Amy vanished in a place designed to feel safe. And that betrayal? It terrifies us. Second, the silence. Most crimes leave echoes. A scream, a bloody fingerprint, a witness who cracks under guilt. Amy's case is a vacuum. No physical evidence. No credible suspects. Not even a credible motive. Just a family's raw, unrelenting grief, and a trail of maybes that lead nowhere. The FBI's kidnapping classification feels like a warning. This could happen to anyone, even you. Third, the sightings. That Polaroid, the Barbados bathroom, the bruised woman in Trinidad. These aren't just clues, they're emotional landmines. They force us to imagine Amy alive, trapped, begging for help in a world that looks away. They make us wonder, what if that were my sister, my daughter? And when those leads crumble, it's not just the Bradleys who feel the loss. It's all of us. We're left wondering if we, too, would ignore a stranger's cry for help. But here's the real reason this case claws at our guts. Someone knows. A crew member who heard a door slam that night. A passenger who saw Amy with yellow and shrugged it off. A trafficker who still hears her name in his dreams. The truth isn't lost. It's buried, under fear, under guilt, under the lie that it's none of my business. The Bradleys know this. They've spent half their lives pleading with strangers. If you know something, say something. They've stood in foreign police stations, holding photos of Amy's prom, her graduation, her childhood dog. Proof she was real. Proof she mattered. But the silence is a wall. And yet, we can't look away. True crime stories usually satisfy our hunger for order. The bad guy gets caught. The puzzle gets solved. Amy's case does the opposite. It whispers, monsters win. The innocent vanish. Happy endings are a fairy tale. That's why we keep digging. Why we dissect Reddit threads at 2 a.m. Why we side-eye cruise ship employees. We need to believe that if we stare hard enough into the void will blink. But maybe there's something deeper here. Amy's story isn't just about her. It's about the 600,000 people who vanish in the U.S. every year. The ones who don't make headlines. The ones whose families never get a Polaroid or a tip from Trinidad. Amy's face became a symbol, a reminder that every missing person is someone's Brad, someone's Iva, someone's gecko tattoo. So why does it haunt us? Because it's not a story. It's a mirror. It shows us how fragile safety is, how easily joy curdles into horror, how the world can shrug at a woman's cries for help. And worst of all, how we'll probably never know if Amy Lynn Bradley died that night in 1998, or if she's still out there, a ghost in plain sight, waiting for someone to see her. The ocean is a liar. It sparkles in the sunlight, all turquoise and tranquil, like it's never swallowed a soul. But dive deeper and you'll find its secrets, rusted shipwrecks, unmarked graves, and stories like Amy Bradley's, trapped in the silence between the waves. For 26 years, her case has drifted in that silence. A puzzle without edges, a scream nobody heard. And tonight, as the Rhapsody of the Seas sails on, renovated, rebranded, scrubbed clean of its past, the truth about Amy still sinks slowly into the dark. Narration continues. Amy Lynn Bradley isn't just a missing person. She's a reckoning, a reminder that for all our satellites, our DNA tests, our illusion of control, the world is still a place where people dissolve into thin air, where a father can wake up to an empty balcony and spend the rest of his life screaming into the wind, where a brother's last memory of his sister is her laughing at a magician's cheesy trick, not knowing it's the final punchline. We want to believe the ocean gave her peace, that she rests in its depths, cradled by corals, far from the horrors we imagine. But the alternative? That she's out there, or was trapped in some filthy room, praying for a rescue that never came? That's the thought that sears. The one that makes us check hotel peepholes twice, clutch our keys like weapons, and side-eye strangers on cruise ships. The Bradleys still leave a light on in their porch, just in case. They know the odds. They've heard the statistics. But statistics don't heal. Closure does. And closure is the one thing the ocean refuses to spit back. So where does that leave us? With theories, with nightmares, with a girl frozen in time, 23, smiling, her gecko tattoo bold against her sunburned shoulder. A girl who loved purple pens and R&B, and her little brother's terrible jokes. A girl who should have been a radiologist, a wife, a mother. A girl who became a ghost story instead. Maybe that's why we can't let go. Because Amy's not just Amy. She's every what if we've ever choked down. Every time we trusted the wrong person. Every time we walked home alone at night, heart racing, and swore we'd never do it again. Her story isn't about the sea. It's about us. Our fragility. Our fear. Our refusal to admit that monsters don't just live under the bed. They dance with us in nightclubs, serve us piña coladas, and vanish into the crowd before last call. So, what do you think happened? Did the ocean take her? Or did someone far worse? Maybe you're convinced she fell. Maybe you're sure she's still out there, a face in someone else's vacation photo. Or maybe, like the Bradleys, you're stuck in the hell of not knowing. Here's the thing about secrets. They rot. They fester. And sooner or later, they wash ashore. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe in 50 years. But until then, Amy's story stays adrift, a warning etched not in headlines, but in the salt water and sweat of everyone who's ever wondered. Could it happen to me? The ocean isn't talking, but you can. So tell me, what's your theory?